Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Union, which is being held pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law C-231, laws of New Jersey dated 1975. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the local source and/or the Star Ledger, the two newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. Roll call.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Ms. Martins.
Here.
Mr. Bentavegana.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. McNeil.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Ms. Ricketts is absent. And Mr. Champion.
Here, there being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from November 15th, January 24th, and April the 10th. May I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the meeting minutes of November 15th, 2023, January 24th, 2024, and April 10th, 2024 be approved as written and dispensed with their reading.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Mr. Manguso, at this time, are there any communications?
There are no communications, Mr. Chairman.
Hearing none. Our first and only order of business this evening, we only have one case, is calendar number 3431, Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God, DBA, Living World Church, located at 2208 Stanley Terrace, Block 5504, Lots 17, 18, and 22.01, and it concerns the overnight truck parking, which is not permitted use in the CI zone. Counselor, would you like to begin?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Stephen Hale, representing the applicant Training Church. Great to see you all again, and thank you for hearing us this evening. I did have an opportunity to speak to council and Anthony, and just by way of background, we are in the process of revising our plans. Collier's, Phil Hatter wanted some additional stormwater calculations and the like. We did submit some a couple of weeks ago. He has not yet had a chance to review that, and he said he wouldn't be able to do that by today. In addition, speaking to the pastor and the representatives of the church, we're actually going to remove a number of the parking spaces and replace that with additional buffering to the residential area. So we didn't bring along our engineer or our planners tonight because we'll cover that at a next hearing. What I would, and shortly I'll call upon Pastor Nick to tell us a little bit about the church and why this development is important to the viability of the church and the ability of them to continue to fund important projects, not only for the church, but for the community. And as Mr. Chairman, you indicated, we're here before this board for the variance. Well, I think we're going to eliminate the variance for the buffer because we're going to have well more than the 10 feet noted in the Collier's review. We're here because the ordinance doesn't permit overnight truck parking, but it is in the CI commercial industrial zone. And I just want to point out, and I know you have the Collier's review in your council, but I just want to point out what's permitted in the CI zone, because what we're looking for here in and of itself would be permitted, but for the restriction on overnight parking. And I think it's important to note in section, I don't want to sound too much like a lawyer, but section 170-902 talks about the purpose of this zone, the CI zone. And it says the purpose of this article is to permit large lots and buildings for the operation of industrial, office, warehousing, distribution, manufacturing, and similar businesses that generate considerable vehicle traffic, require large indoor spaces, and/or produce otherwise undesirable externalities. In essence, what you're saying, we're putting this in a zone where it's not going to impact, let's say, downtown and the like. And then, if you also look at what's permitted in the zone, and again, we're looking at basically storage area for trucks, containers, and the like. What's permitted, and again, and I guess my point is, and our planners will cover this when we go through our testimony, is what we're looking to do here is much less intense than other permitted uses in the zone. And among them are manufacturing, research laboratories, warehousing and distribution center, car services, indoor and outdoor recreation, fitness centers, indoor agriculture, places of assembly, which obviously it's great because the church is permitted there, public buildings, public parking garages, public parks, self-storage facilities, and interestingly, outdoor storage is in fact permitted in this zone. So all of these items, community facilities, public utility buildings, and then conditional uses are automobile, auto repair garages, car washes, cannabis cultivation centers. So all these are items that are either permitted or conditionally permitted. And again, my point is to show that we're here before this board for the variance for the overnight parking, and we feel that the buffering that we're providing and the fact that what will be generated by way of vehicles coming and going from the site is certainly much less intense than, let's say, a 24/7 manufacturing facility or an outdoor recreation facility. And again, it's interesting that outdoor storage is permitted, but overnight parking of trucks is not. So, but regardless of that, that's a little bit of the background. And Pastor will explain in more detail, but the church owns the property. It's back there. It abuts Route 78. And by the ability to develop this property and lease it out, it will, again, provide the ability to the church to gain funds for it. I mean, I guess they could sell it and have somebody build a manufacturing facility back there. But I think when you hear what the pastor has to say about what the church does and how this will help facilitate the stability of the church, and one of the key factors they do in the area is the food pantry, which has been an important part of both the area and the Township of Union. So enough for my intro, and if there's no preliminary questions, I'd like to call upon Pastor Nick.
Just for the record, Council, I did mark A1, the application. It was submitted since we're starting tonight, and A2 is the site plan of Ed Deck's group revised through February 9, 2024, consisting of 5 sheets. So A1 and A2 for the record. I'll just comment as the board attorney that Mr. Hale gave a summary. Obviously, we're not starting testimony from legal planning tonight, but there is no doubt that they are here specifically for the overnight truck aspect, which
Correct.
is expressly not permitted. So
Correct.
there's no misunderstanding. I mean, Mr. Hale kind of summarized, I think, his anticipated testimony from his planner, but there's no doubt legally that the applicant is rightfully here tonight in need of D1 variance relief, so just so everybody's clear.
Right. Yes.
If I can ask the witness to, did you have something to add, Steve?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that,
Okay.
certainly. We've spoken about it many times.
If I can ask the witness to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth.
Yes, sir.
And for the record, state and spell your name with your affiliation.
So Nicholas Badillo, Pastor Nicholas Badillo, Nicholas, last name Badillo.
Right. So, Pastor Nick, first of all, give your affiliation with the church, and then if you could move on to a little bit of the background of the church,
Yep.
and then we can touch on what this project means to the church.
Thank you, everybody, for having us here tonight. It's an honor to serve the community here. I am no stranger. I grew up on Galloping Hill Road, right across the street, from Lehigh Avenue my entire life. For 30 years, I was blessed to live right on the corner of Galloping Hill, Lehigh, Rindale Place, right there. And so this area means a lot to my heart. From Little League, from playing in Roseville Park Little League and partnering with the Union Township in many different ways, this is home. And so I'm not here tonight as someone who doesn't know our area. And I'm excited to share a little bit about how we came to do church together in this area. So 1973, actually 1971, the group of Ukrainian families who had been congregating in 2 buildings in Newark, which had started in New York in 1941. They came together, they sold their buildings in Newark, and they bought the current building, 2208 Stanley Terrace, and all the property, 2206. They bought all that in 1971. By 1973, they opened the building to be a church. The ground floor used to have dirt in the bottom, and the second floor is where they wound up making their sanctuary for many years. And for those of you that are lifelong residents, you remember, that was a very heavy Slavic area, and they really did a great ministry, especially through the 80s, until the stock market fell in the 90s. When that happened, many of them moved down to North Carolina, into the Carolina areas, leaving them with just very few members to kind of make it. And one of the pastors who just moved down to Texas, who had been there from the beginning helping construct the building, he just moved in his retirement, really did an amazing job of just giving us and passing us the baton. So how did I get there? I've been a youth pastor since I was 18, 19 years old. And when I had the privilege to come back and do ministry here right after college, starting at the age of 21, 22, right here, I coached at Roselle Park High School. I'm an athletic director at Timothy Christian School in Piscataway. I love youth. I love our kids. I love all generations. And I kind of brought that attitude and heart from Christ back here. One of the members, even sitting here tonight, approached me as I was youth pastoring at a church in Scotch Plains and said, hey, our church is down to about 25, 30 people, and we want God to do what he has always had planned in this region through the Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God Church. 2015, we kind of grabbed hands. My wife and I came over here, and we partnered with them and the families, many of which are here today, some of which, everyone you see here with us today, and many of which were young children, way back then. Some who've lived on property, as handlers and handlers, as in the parsonage and the places we have there, and since 1985. So we did not come in, to do anything other than take the baton. We did that really well together, and so from 2015 to 17, one of the biggest things we pointed out was we needed to let the Union Township residents know that all are welcome. The Ukrainian Evangelical Assemblies of God really pigeonholes us to Slavic people in nature, and then it kind of puts us in a place where even as a denomination, the Assemblies of God, they weren't really either, right? They weren't only fully Ukrainian. There was a lot of Argentinian families there. There was many different ethnicities represented in cultures there. And so in that year, so in those 2 years from 2015 to 2017, we worked to change the name to the Living Word Church. When we did that, we have now seen in the 7 years of being Living Word Church, this past Easter, we had 1,223 people with us on Sunday, on this past Easter Sunday. We average about 740 people per Sunday right now, and 407 of them at least. That's just me being very honest with you about our records. 407 of those that have actually given their information, and you all know you don't like to give your information to everywhere you go, but we have 407 individuals that live in Union that attend Living Word Church regularly. Some are here tonight, representative of that, and honestly, this is just the beginning. One of the beautiful things that we did was to make sure that in the baton passing that we kept going what was really impacting the community most, and that was the food pantry. Since 1993, through the opportunities together with this community and the Hillside Food Bank, and Stop and Shop and Walmart, we have partnered with them now to supply weekly. We have monthly distributions, but there are daily opportunities for people to get food, clothing, care. This past year, 2023, we served 5,000 people, individuals, documented, sent in with names, addresses to the food, to basically the governing body, that we get all the grants from and some of the help from to be able to do that. But you and I all know that, it's never enough. People need it, especially with the rising food costs and stuff like that. And so since 1993, in 2015, we took that baton. We've been continuing to expand upon that. Throughout COVID, we were one of the only people that stayed open. Our families, a couple individuals here tonight that run our facility and run our pantry and get to see every single time the needs of these, the people and everything. And I just want to say that, it's a blessing to partner. I remember calling over to the town direct messaging through social media during COVID and saying, hey, can we please get the word out together? There are people who need, and we are being told at least that we are one of the only food pantries handing out food. How can we do this together? And the Union Township social media posted up what we were doing. And that was, some partnerships there. If you don't mind, so that I don't become Pastor Nick too long on you tonight, I'm going to read a little bit of what I prepared for you, if that's okay. Our goal to impact the community is something we take very seriously. It was a goal of UEAG in 1973 and is still the goal of Living Word Church today. Since the early 90s, our church has been a polling station for elections every single year, except last year because of a flood that caused us to lose the downstairs of our building for a long period of time. One of our pipes bursted on the second floor and came down, and we lost our entire bottom floor, and it took a lot longer to fix that. On top of that, we value the ability to do what we need to do as a growing church to fix it all, and we were unable to accommodate this year, and we look forward, if given the opportunity, to re-partner again this election season with the town to be a polling station like we've been, one of the members told me since 1988, 1990, that we've been doing that. And so that was just one example of one way that we've partnered and look forward to continue partnering. The food pantry, I explained many of that, but one fun part is the Nora Gardens residents, right? The 62 and over home, corner of Stanley Terrace and Burnett. Many of the individuals sitting here tonight in front of you hand deliver food to any member inside of the apartments that need it every month. We prepare them, we put name tags on them, and we deliver them as they ask us, and we bring it up the street, and we make sure that they don't have to come. Many of them can't, and so we bring it to them as a church, and it is an honor, once again, to partner with our community in many different ways. I explained to you during COVID the opportunities that we afforded, and we're very thankful for that. Upon attending the interfaith group here in town with Police Director Chris Donnelly and Kevin Woodridge, it's been an honor to partner with them with all different faiths to see how we can better serve Union, whether it's something as simple as parking or as simple as helping be a younger pastor and, and being able to meet the chaplains of the police department, the fire department, and be able to be a resource and to be a part of that if they would allow me to at some point. And those are just some of the examples of the blessing. From that, we've partnered with the Union Police Department. We've hired the Jobs in Blue, and we have a contract with them that they would be with us each week on Sunday. As I said to you, Detective Ianelli could probably tell you during Easter the exact volume that was there. And while we won't see that necessarily every week, that volume, it's still a nice volume of people, and we enjoy the partnership with the town in that way to see our police officers there serving on Sunday, and we get to bless the town and them as well. And so that's just something that I wanted to share with you so that you can continue to see that we are here. This is our desire. We're not a church that's looking for the big warehouse in one of these random cities in New Jersey, like most of the churches like us that have grown, if we can be honest. I don't know how versed everyone is in church development, but many of them have either bought multiple buildings and campuses, or they've just gone out to the farther parts of New Jersey and just built these huge churches. Our church is growing, and with that growing church comes with a lot of costs. We have an aging building. We have a food pantry that meets out of a garage, and in a building that, quite frankly, we're spending thousands of dollars monthly to fix and upkeep. We just replaced our air conditioner system, this past year to the tune of $75,000. And I just want you to know that this is not, what this is just us being creative and responsible and being a good steward of our land. We want to do what's right, and that's why we're here. We want to do what we could with our land, and we're blessed to be a church that has no debt, but we don't have millions of dollars sitting anywhere either. We want to serve this community, and when we put our heads together as a community, this was one idea. Before we brought this to you, and in the years prior, this was basically an overgrown brush area with downed trees, and people would be going back there to do mischievous things. Let your mind run. That was happening. The police would be called because there'd be cars back there, lights and things happening. And when we cleared everything out there, when we did it, when we started taking care of the land, the residents were very thankful. And I think That's probably a testimony tonight that you can see. We have a resident who has a business on our property, and we have a great relationship with him and his business. The residents around us, when a tree had fallen and they told us and made us aware of something that happened, we made sure that we took care of it. We sent the tree company to help them, or we compensated them, because it's our property and it's our responsibility. And so we take that responsibility very seriously. And tonight, I just want to say thank you, and I thank you that, in this day and age, many churches are closing their doors. If I can be honest with you, as a young minister, I'll be 40 years old in a few weeks. Many churches, many pastors stop doing what they're doing. And when you look around at the list of counselors and people who, counselors have wait lists, longer than you could imagine. And our heart and our desire, truthfully, is to be an asset to this community, is to be here and to do whatever we can for as long as we can. And I thank you for considering this and telling us what we can do with our property in that way, so that we can be a blessing to the community and have the resources to do it for not just a few years, but for generations to come. Thank you all.
All right, Pastor Nick, just a couple of specific questions with respect to this property. I know the board has the plans. The church is basically on the corner on Stanley Terrace, and this is in the back of that property. You've indicated it was not well maintained, and this would, so tell us a little bit about what you envision for this. I know we will have some more detailed operation, but basically further clearing that area and having it be parking for, let's say, a company taking product or containers and like. So just very briefly, by way of background.
So just being there every day, just being in the area. We have Mulberry Metal right across the street. We're great friends. We serve with them. They have 75 plus employees, 100 employees who need access to the pantry that we help as well. And we use their lot. We have a great relationship with them. So we park there all week, at night, Sundays. And so with seeing all the traffic, the normal traffic that comes through that area, it just seemed for us to make sense to see what we could do with what's already there. And what it basically looks like is when you pull into our lot, right, the church building is there, and then as you've seen on the property, there are two buildings that are not ours on our property, basically. I believe I don't know.
On the roadway going.
Yeah, so there's an easement. There's just a simple roadway that goes through the middle. And the gentleman that owns it, we've built great relationships with him. And as we've cared for our property, we've helped him care for his. And so what we really just envisioned was being able to create space on the left side. I know there's smaller parking spots which seem more on the resident side, but that's what's going to be removed, right? We have already put in, I don't remember how many, I believe it's 15 or more, I don't want to exaggerate, but they're however evenly spaced we could. We planted about 1.5 years ago, arborvitaes, that are already, they've been growing, we're over a year into it, so that there would be a nice natural buffer, and that was what Steve said, that we would continue to build on. Whatever is what we should do, we will do, to make sure that it looks nice for the residents. And they were thankful for that, the residents, they're very thankful that we cleaned it up and make it nice. So we're looking to keep everything on the opposite side, right, which is where PSE&G is basically there, right? That's all PSE.
Backing up to 78.
Yeah, backing up to 78, and against everything. There's a water area over there, which in the plans, right, as part of our what I understand, what we're working towards is a very nice natural water, what's the proper term?
I think it's a bioretention basin.
Yeah, like a bioretention basin, right? We're upon approval, we will build that. We will eat the cost to build that, so that everything is proper and the drainage is proper and all that stuff there, and so we would be parking on that side, and then they would be leaving out there. And the beauty for us as a church, honestly, is that they're not going to be on the weekends. They're willing to work inside of the confines of 7 to 7, which is the town's recommended hours. There's no hazardous materials. They're not working on these trucks, in our lot. The trailer that's proposed in there is as simple as you can imagine. They have a dispatcher, they have a secretary, working, and they would have access to our building for bathrooms during the day, and they will be able to utilize that for simple, operations, to be able to tell the trucks to come in and out. The trucks are leaving one time, and they are coming back one time. There are 30 trucks in the fleet. There are 15 trucks that the owner has said to me numerous times. There's right now, today, right, 7 to 10 on average trucks leave between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. on a regular day, and then they come back at the end of the day once. So it's about 80% of the volume leaves between the first 3 hours of the day, So this is not an in and out. This is not, for lack of a better term, like an Amazon where they're coming back to our place to get packages and go. This is leave in the morning at some point, go to the port, pick up something, go take it to wherever it's supposed to go. When they're done with their day from the port, they come back and they park these trucks there. So that's pretty much the extent of the usage. And once again, just being in that area, it's not different than what I see all day, in a very healthy way on that side of town.
Okay, and then as you indicated, I know Mr. Deck is working on a revised landscape plan.
Yes.
A buffering plan that, and the board sees on the plan, there's a series of vehicles that are lined up, or parking spaces when you pull in on the right, they will be eliminated, and that area will be expanded for landscape and buffering to the residents.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we are willing to do whatever it is on that side that's asked to make sure that the proper trees, and once again, in good faith, we already took that cost, and we've already planted, if someone wants to see it, they could see the amount of trees that are planted. They're I don't know how to say babies, I'm not a specialist in this area, but, they're visible. The gaps are visible, but we're willing to fill them in if that's what's being asked.
And any drainage or requirements that you've indicated that would be recommended by Collier's Engineering, you would agree to implement?
100%, yes.
Okay.
We want to do it right. We have a neighbor, and we have multiple neighbors, meaning PSE&G being the one it would affect, and then the other gentleman who owns the two buildings. We work already to make sure, because with the area the way it is. And so, once again, yes, we want to be a good steward of the land. We will do it properly.
Okay. And then if ultimately, when we present the more detailed plan or planning, that you would agree that the restriction, I know you don't want them to interfere with services on the weekend.
Correct.
That the hours limitation would be not include the ability to operate on the weekends.
100%. Yeah, that's been a requirement for us. We have too many people, we have too many services, we have too many things that we do, and we didn't want to do any of this at the expense, of what would happen. So.
Okay, great. I have no further preliminary questions of Pastor Nick at this time. Obviously, we're going to be back with detailed operational testimony, our engineer and our planners, but certainly if there's any preliminary questions for
I
Pastor
just
Nick at
would
this time.
add, Mr. Hale, it's kind of tricky. We're kind of procedurally advancing this a little differently than we normally would. Mr. Chairman, certainly I think that the opportunity, since the witness has been sworn for questions, is the next step. But I would just caution that, while admirable, there's no doubt that what your services and you're providing through the church is unquestionably
Thank you.
admirable, and I commend you 100%, as I'm sure any board member sitting here would do, as any member in the public here tonight would do. There's no doubt about that. I, as the lawyer, have to be careful, and I'll mention to you, because this is what the board is inclined to ask you specifically about the use, and until Mr. Hale asked you about the site in particular with the trucks, that's really what we're here to discuss. So it is in the record, you were able to offer the comments about the church, and as I said, that my accommodations, I can't overstate that to you. It really is wonderful. But I think the questions, Mr. Chairman, and for the board should focus on the use of the site, and that's the way we'll move the hearing going forward.
That
It just makes sense to
obviously.
do that, because otherwise we could be here. You can't, from a land use perspective, factor in the appreciation and the likeness of the applicant to do something on the site. What the board has to focus on, what I, as their lawyer, have to advise them, is to focus on the use that's proposed for the site in a land use context. So
Thank you.
we have to be careful with that. I, as their lawyer, have to be careful with that. So I just want the board to be clear, and just so the public understands, that's where the questions, I think, in this record will go from here. I don't
Correct.
want to hear, nor do I think it would be appropriate to start commenting on the food bank and what they did during COVID
Sure.
and other things. It's in the record, and as I
Thank
said, my compliments, no doubt.
And perhaps just one thing that I may not have focused on, and I appreciate Mr. Pizzola's comments. The fact that you're looking to do this, what is the relationship between the church and this? And I know we've talked about it. It's a mechanism to get income to help
Yeah.
sustain the goals and missions of the church.
100%.
You're not tied into the business, other than that will be a tenant. Just briefly explain how this operation
Yeah.
ties into the church.
Yeah, I think, and please course correct me if I go off, I think the purpose here is understanding that financially, right, churches are only sustained by giving, right? Is that the route we're talking here? Is that how you want me to explain a little bit? Like,
Yep, just,
this
and
is-
that this
Yeah,
would
so the
be
relationship is income, right?
basically income.
We are sustained by donations, whether it's food or dollars, we are sustained by that, right? If we want to meet the needs of counseling, if we want to meet the needs of food, whatever the listed item might be, we need to have the revenue to do it. As a very fast-growing church, right, we are just trying to understand, we hold value to the idea that you have to be a good steward of what you have first, and then follow the Lord and the rest of it. So we're just trying to be a good steward of what we have and understand, because just as Steve said before, a lot of this is permitted, it seems to be. The overnight parking part is the part we're trying to get. And so the relationship is we're trying to use what we have to better the community, to have the resources ourselves to do what we have envisioned. And, like the gentleman mentioned, I'm not going to get into all those things because that's not appropriate to the case, but we, in the umbrella, there's a lot that I can explain to you we can do in the community, through opportunities to use our property the way it is the way it is permitted, in whatever way. And that's what we're seeking through this is, permission to do it, to do something the right way, or to be at least led the right way, so.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that was part of my point, though, Pastor Nick, and
Yes, sir.
council, was if you were here seeking an approval to use the site for religious purposes, that would be first and foremost factually relevant to what the board would consider tonight. You're past that point. You're there operating as a church.
Yes, sir.
That detail as it relates to truck overnight parking
Yep.
really is far afield. That's why I made the point I did. I want to make sure they understand.
Understood.
The funding
Yep.
part I get. You got to fund
Okay.
your services and your existence, and all the power to you. I hope you sustain yourself in that regard. But just so the board is clear again, it really is the truck overnight parking and use of that part of the site that we're going to try to focus on.
Nothing further right now.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up for questions from the board. At this time, are there any board members that would like to question Pastor Nick? And remember, focus on the use that the applicant is requesting. It is to park overnight a series of trucks, which is not permitted at this time in the CI zone.
I do have a question.
Mr. McNeil?
Pastor, I believe I heard the statement that there'll be no hazardous material
Yes, sir.
stored on the property. I also heard that the trucks will leave and come back. So is it the intent not to have any containers stored overnight? Example, truck goes out.
Right.
Can't get to the location, so he's got to come back.
Correct. That will happen, yes. They will have containers on them. They're not allowed to open them, is what I've come to learn in the industry. Those are sealed. When you get them from the port, they're sealed. And unless you are the final destination, there is no opening them. But in contractual obligations, they do not pick up hazardous materials at all. You have to have certain certifications in trucks to do that, and they don't have that. They're not a company that deals with yes, so I'll stick to the point. That they will, yes.
So will there be any concerns with security, since this is an open area, and now you have containers with content in them that can bring in a bad element? Is there any concern or any provisions to address that?
We would be happy to consider any recommendations that the town might make. We work closely with the Jobs in Blue, and we also work closely with a private company, like, for example, they use like the SOAR certifications and stuff like that. So we do have for our services, like for our youth and stuff, whenever the buildings are in operation with kids or something, we have certified security there, and we have them in a car or walking around our campus. And so much of the week, including during food pantry distribution nights and all of our services, we do have armed security, whether from union or certified individuals there. We'd be happy to consider that further. One of the measures that is already there is that there's a gate. So there's a locked gate. that it would be behind. There's no barbed wire or anything like that, but to be simple from before, this was a really terrible area before. This was an area that attracted mischievous prior, and we have not encountered any problems, even just with our property. We did even apply to the government for one of the grants, the security grants that's offered, to try to do that. So we budgeted about $15,000 this year to increase our capacity with cameras. So we have cameras outdoor right now and indoor, and we, every year we try to make sure, because of that, because of the area we're in, that we continue to harden our target.
And one last question is concerning the trucks. I mean, we all own vehicles. We know things
Yes.
have a tendency to break down. They have a tendency to have oils and things leak.
Yes, sir.
How can you assure this board that, the third party will not, lift the truck up on a jack and drop the oil pan and start doing those type of routine maintenance,
Yes, sir.
which is common
Yes.
to any homeowner that's got a driveway? How do you assure this board that that won't happen on this property?
The way I see it, properties that we rent out, and, the way I see it is similar to leasing my apartment to somebody. I cannot guarantee you that they would not do something foolish, but what I can guarantee you is that we have properly put together legal contracts with them explaining that it is not permissible to do that, including the hazardous waste and stuff like that. These, changing, even changing a tire, nothing like that is allowed back there. They have to get it towed out appropriately. And if something was to happen, right, which could happen anywhere, if something was to happen, if the truck broke a line or something happens, they are responsible as per the legal documents that we've drafted in hopes of securing, this in the affirmative at some point. In the letter of interest that we have, we've made it very clear through legal jargon that there are consequences and that they are responsible, for the cleanup. We did get and obviously you'll hear this from our engineer, who's way smarter at this than me, but we did do soil tests and we submitted all of that already, right, am I proper to say that? We've done those tests to make sure that what we're working with now is good, and be happy to, within those agreements, from what I'm understanding, it's natural when they were to leave to retest and, or at certain points to retest, to hold them accountable, to make sure that nothing has happened like that. Even if they tried to hide it, they would be held responsible, and we would remedy it just as any other business would properly.
Yeah. And I guess one other thing to add, they're in sight distance, walking distance from where you are, so if there were violations of the lease and contractual provisions, they're going to be watching it.
And we have cameras. We have outdoor cameras pointed in that direction.
Pastor Nick, I have a quick question for you. As the zoning officer,
Yes, sir.
just so you know, I don't vote, so I have a question as the zoning officer. You mentioned that these containers are locked, and that if they do come to the site because they couldn't get to their destination on time,
Yes, sir.
they're locked and secured,
Yes, sir.
nobody can get them. So we don't know what's in them, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy to ask the current, the prospective tenant, I would be happy to ask them, on average, or if they could provide us a material list of what's commonly there. Like I said before, I think what's common for them is there's segments of the business, right? So hazardous would be one example of a segment. And so whatever they pick up is X material.
Fair.
Yeah, so that would be, now.
That's fair, but.
I would also answer your question really quickly, just the same way as previous. Can it be broken into? I mean, yeah, of course it could, but we're going to do everything we can to help make sure between the gate, the cameras, the presence of just the common people, and everything, that we try to do our best to limit that.
Understood. I guess I was leaning more towards the line of, let's just say, God forbid, caught on fire.
Yes.
My fire department has to fight that. And
Yes.
if they don't know what's in it and there's some hazardous material and they're going in blind, not knowing what's in there, I mean, that kind of would be a concern. Now, could it happen? Yes. Would it happen? Who knows? Probably not. But there's always, God forbid, that one case.
Yeah,
So
I
I
appreciate
just
that.
would want to have the safety of my fire department if they're going to go out there and we don't know what's in here, especially if it's hazardous material, and they go to put something, let's say, on that, they go to put it out with water and it requires foam. you know?
Yes.
That would be my concern, just,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, first off, we have two great union firefighters right in our congregations. One's here tonight even. Very thankful for our union our fire department. We did get a report back from them as far as the review there, and that report only suggested that we just keep the lanes so that if something did happen, that the spacing was appropriate so that we could respond that they could respond appropriately. I also think the blessing of how we've planned this out, and you'll see it in the adjustments that you'll receive, is that the way we have put them away from the residences, when we said, hey, God forbid something happened in one of these containers, who are we affecting, Nick? Right? We're talking about land. We're not talking about houses. We're talking about this, the bioretention basin. We're talking about more area. That's still ours. And then obviously the backside of PSE&G, which is only open space. So the blessing of kind of trying to find a nice balance here is putting it where we're proposing it, currently proposed, but also with the removal of the shorter spots. I think it would also help, satisfy that.
and to your point, yes, fire department did have no comment, but that's why this board's here. And sometimes they ask questions, or I'll ask a question, and then the
Thank you.
fire department gets like noted, and, then
Thank
they'll
you.
say, oh, yeah, we didn't think about it, because, they didn't think about it. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I have a couple of questions. Pastor Nick is a past church council president from a local church. I applaud what you're doing at your church. I think it's very commendable.
Thank
The
you.
questions I have, unfortunately, are not related to that. Do you know, are these all going to be gas vehicles? Are 60 vehicles going to be bringing these trailers back and forth? Are they all gas? Are there any diesel or any electric vehicles?
I'm not a mechanic. I would be happy to ask that question. I don't have that answer tonight, but we'll certainly note it and get that. I don't believe any of them are electric vehicles, and I'm confident that whatever a normal truck would be is what they have.
Well, the reason I'm asking about the diesel is because sometimes even in the winter, they have to run them sometimes all night, or they have to start them up early when it's cold. So is there anybody going to be there to monitor that?
Yeah, I mean, we will be continuing through the cameras and through, check-ins, and obviously when you give somebody a legal document and ask them to sign it, your hope is that they stick within those confines, and we're going to.
Was there anybody going to be there to monitor that? I mean, your cameras may not pick up sound if they're running a truck all night. Or
Sure.
If one of the vehicles happens to be a refrigerated vehicle and they're running a refrigerator, compressors for the refrigerated part, is that possible or not possible?
Well, I think in anything, right, there's always possibilities. I think our job in a contract is to make sure that we put boundaries and we put, legal language that helps them understand there's consequences, just like anything else, to not staying within the boundaries we've asked. We've made it clear that 7 to 7 is the business hours. We've made it clear in those ways that this is, for a prospective tenant, this is what we're looking from you. And if you cannot adhere to that, don't even bother. There's just too many people looking, we have a lot of opportunities, to execute this, and we are going to hold someone to the highest standard as per it. And just to answer your question in regards to not being able to see people, the cameras nowadays are very, very great. Not only do we have access right in our phones for these cameras, but cameras do show us who's coming in and out. We've caught people illegally dumping on our property because of these cameras. That's everyone sees a church and they think it's vacant, and they see the land back there, and so we have stopped people from doing things that we even don't want them to do as a result of the technology that we've invested in to keep our facilities secure. Once again, even with the refrigeration and the diesel, the different types of trucks, two things. One, you'll see in the adjustment, it's not 60, it's 30. It's going to be 30 trucks. It's not going to be 60 vehicles anymore. We have made sure and made it clear that we lowered that standards by removing the parking spots that we spoke about, which would be next to the residents, closest to the residents. Those 15 are now going to be removed. And then there's 15 that kind of go, let's call it 60% up the wall, the 78 wall going towards the residences. Those 15 shorter spots, as you'll see them on your drawings, those are being removed. So the 30 spots have now brought this down to 30, so the volume is half of what we originally were looking to do. And once again, the space back there can handle it. That's not the question here, right? It's more about how do we be a good steward and we be good neighbors, and how do we be a good steward of our town. And if the volume is something that we needed to to be mindful of. I hope that our actions of reducing that by 50%, will speak to our willingness and flexibility.
All right, you also said that the gates are going to be locked.
Yes, sir.
Security. What happens when the truck coming back hits a traffic jam, as we know a lot about those around here?
Yeah.
And doesn't get back before 7 o'clock, and once they come in at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah, I mean, from what we're talking about in that spot, I mean, we all live in this area, right? I've had the train going past my house on Galloping Hill Road for 30-plus years, and so when we talk about disturbance, right, could it happen? Yeah, let's not lie to each other. Of course, a truck can come back a little later randomly because
What's
of
to prevent them from parking on the street or parking in your lot?
the dispatcher. In the nature of this business, the dispatcher is the last one to leave every day.
At what
And
time?
so, well, the business would close at 7 as per their hours of recommendation, right?
My point
But
is-
if we're going to be responsible and get that truck back, I don't want to lie to you, you know what I'm saying? I want to be reasonable. Yes, of course, traffic can happen and these situations can be there. And so the responsible thing would be just to communicate how they've communicated to me they work, because I've asked this question, and
Right.
that's the dispatcher. The dispatcher stays till the last person comes, right? They lock up at night. They're the last person, and the trucks are being told we work from 7 to 7, get back. But in the case, once again, just like other examples we've given tonight, in the case that something does not work out as per, we would be seeing this happen. And if it's happening regularly, we have a problem, right? Because that's not what the contract says.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Benedengna?
Good evening, Pastor Nick. You mentioned that the trucking company does most of their work going to the port.
Yes, sir.
And let's assume the truck route, majority of it's going to come out of the church, make a left,
Yes,
go
sir.
up Burnett Avenue, get right onto 78, which
Yes,
is less than a mile.
Yes, sir.
In an event that there's, a detour,
Mm-hmm.
the next route would probably be Route 22,
Yes, sir.
which means they'd have to travel down Stanley Terrace
Mhm.
to Stuyvesant to Oakland,
Yes, sir.
traveling through residential areas.
Mhm.
We just got to take that into consideration.
I agree.
There always is detours, accidents on 78, they shut that entrance down. So I just wanted to bring that up as a point.
I think what's great about that, right, and I'm not an engineer on this side, but from what my studies and our realtors even have shown us, the Vauxhall, right, we're talking about trucking routes. All three of those streets are trucking routes. So I know that this is not new to anybody on that side. I'm sure that the couple trucks that come into Mulberry Metal daily, right, to drop off, what they're doing there, right, they're one of 3 companies left in America that do what they do. And so, when you think about the trucks coming in and out, I see them go that way. And so I'm confident that they have to get somewhere, and whether it's going up Oakland or whatever the designated route is. And as I've asked a few times, please, if there's a recommended route, we can make this a part of our agreements, in what we do. If that's what is appropriate, we can very simply say, hey, these are the ways out. It's 78, it's the left, and get on left, right, and get on 78, or it's going down that way. We also have the option to go down towards Irvington, which is not necessarily affected by us here, which I do see them make those different turns. And so I would be leaning on the guidance of any professionals, including yourselves, on recommended routes out of our area. We know that they're there because they happen already in our zone regularly.
All right, my second question to you is, are you taking away from church parking with these trucks
No, sir.
parked in the back?
No, the blessing of building relationships with our neighbors has been Mulberry Metal. We use their lot. And so all of their main area, their big parking spots, we use that. And to be a good steward, once again, of our own facility, we do 3 services every Sunday. And so we preach, we do worship, we do everything 3 times to accommodate appropriately the amount of people that come through. And we've done that since COVID. We started our second service because of space, because of COVID, and then the third one was not because of COVID, it was because we were out of space appropriately. And because of that parking lot, and to be honest with you, we didn't need it when I first got permission. 2015, I introduced myself to Dick. Dick's been there since that place, I believe, opened. He's an older gentleman, and he just looked at me like a son, and he said, hey, He's like, I love what you're doing, here's a key. You can use our lot. And in 2015, when we didn't need that lot, he gave it to me, and he gave me that key to use it. I joke with him all the time. I said, hey, we would love your warehouse one day. And he said, don't pray for my business to close. So I said, no, we will not do that. I said, maybe just a piece of it we can use if we grow, and, for the food pantry and more. And, so we would be taking away no parking from church right now. We do not need that to do what we do each and every week.
No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board members that would like to question Pastor Nick?
I have a quick question for Mr. Hale.
Yeah.
Mr. Hale, did you represent Boxed, the warehouse on Union Avenue?
Not boxed. I represented,
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because I believe that there was, in that resolution, there was a truck route.
truck route.
Truck route for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they weren't allowed to go, when they went down
Sorry.
Oakland,
It
so,
was Bridge Development that I
Bridge-
represented.
okay.
Box was a tenant. after.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I would defer to that, because we gotta keep that in mind too. If they do decide to go up Oakland Avenue, there was a route there that was put on that warehouse.
Okay.
So just,
Yeah, and we can also
we
talk
might
to
wanna look into
the
that.
police department on truck routes too. I appreciate that.
Any other board questions? Hearing none? Mr. Hale?
Again, we have no further witnesses this evening, and perhaps we could pick a date to come back and continue with our presentation. I don't think,
Technically, you should ask the public if anybody here
Right.
has questions relative to the truck parking use at the facility, not with the church services, if there's any.
Only on the testimony given,
Not general comments either.
yeah, no general comments. Are there any members of the public that would
Okay,
like to ask?
Will the witness, I assume the pastor would be available on the return date anyway, should we
certainly.
have to swear you back in?
certainly.
Yes, sir.
And we'll certainly waive any time constraints that
Yeah,
confront the
we
board to
would
consider the
stipulate any
adjournment.
extension.
I mean, once again, as I stated earlier, Mr. Hale, this is a unique approach. A lot of the information from the pastor by way of direct testimony really wasn't that. He was asking, well, we'll work with the town, or we're
Yes.
trying to back into the approval. And I assume your professionals will be the ones in a position that are going to offer the testimony
Correct.
to fill those voids. It's not necessarily, as you know, it's difficult to try to have a D1 use approval based on trying to pigeonhole certain things that
Sure.
might come up, might not come up, et cetera. So,
And this is why this was very helpful, getting questions about security, truck routes, safety, all very important because they're
But the
right next-
plan formally has been amended to 30 spots, does does the
That's-
site match that at this point?
No,
I don't,
Mr. Deck is working on that site.
yeah, I haven't seen that yet, nor has
Correct.
Colliers, correct? Nor has the board.
Correct.
But the testimony is that this site is no longer going to permit vehicles beyond 30 trucks. That's what's now
Correct.
being proposed?
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
That's correct, sir, yes.
I just want to be clear on that, so
Yeah.
that's a
Yep.
formal
But in a
amendment. That
revised
has to be
plan-
done in writing to back it up, so.
Well, a revised plan will be submitted to this board and to be reviewed by the board professionals, including Colliers and fire and police.
So I would at least suggest allowing some time to digest that process.
Sure.
As it were. I mean, I don't want to, I mean, I understand the sensibility of wanting to earn money for your good fortunes, for your good deeds. But as I said, from a land use perspective, it's cold and to the point, unfortunately. So
Sure.
I don't want to seem like the bad guy in the room, but I think it just makes sense to make sure we cover all these land use aspects. And I'm sure Steve wouldn't disagree in terms of that has to be done, unfortunately. We're in a situation of land use approval here.
So.
I don't know what date you have in
Anthony,
mind.
what
I
do you-
mean,
I have May 22nd, June 5th. I have,
Actually, 22nd looks good, because I think we're back here on the 15th on the other one. We don't want to.
when is Memorial Day? Is that the following Monday or the Monday of that week?
27th is Memorial Day Monday.
The 22nd?
7. Memorial Day Monday is
No,
Oh,
I'm
so
27.
saying the hearing date, May 22nd.
Sounds good.
give us time to have the plans revised.
Yeah, there you go. I'm saying, is that okay? You're not going away or anything?
No, that looks good. I hate having my phone out, but it's, yeah.
May
I can check
22nd.
my calendar.
That's less, a little bit more than a month.
Good?
Yeah, May 22nd. We're good. We got May 22nd and June 5th.
Mr. Chairman, I think you have the board consider adjourning this matter on a motion and a second. The applicant has waived time constraints. The application has been formally amended. There's going to be subsequent plans to support that amendment, and they'd like to do it without further notice, so we can make the public announcement tonight to May 22nd at 7:30 in this room. A motion and a second, a roll call, I think, would be appropriate.
Great.
Okay, board members, can I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's case? And we're going to reschedule it for May 22nd without notice. Can I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn calendar number 3431, Ukrainian Evangelica Assemblies of God, Living World Church, 2208 Stanley Terrace, Block 5504, Lots 17, 18, and 22.01. Let's move it to May 22nd.
Second motion.
Roll call.
Mr. Wiley? Yes. Ms. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Bentavegana?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. McNeil?
Yes.
Mr. Champy?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening, and see you shortly.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Just so the public's clear, I think you should make an announcement, Mr. Chairman. Just so the public's clear, there is no further notice for this. If you got a 200-foot mailing, you're not going to get another one, nor a newspaper publication. The matter is carried until May 22nd at 7:30 in this room. The hearing will be continued.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, there being
Thank
no
you.
further business coming before the board this evening, I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. This meeting is now adjourned.